Hello, welcome to our review this week, Selin.
Acronym. Nice to meet you, Burak.
This section was prepared with contributions and research from Yasar Atolye. We will again discuss the global economy and Turkey in detail.
Yes, it has been quite a busy week again.
Exactly. The agenda is busy, the earnings season in the US is in full swing, banks, tech stocks, then inflation data came out. President Trump's policies, Fed discussions, and there's also an interesting law on the crypto side. We'll take a look at that too.
Yes, that genius law was discussed quite a bit.
And of course, the Turkish markets are approaching an interest rate decision. We have tried to summarize it for you. Shall we begin?
Let's get started.
Let's start with global developments and the US markets. Now the bank balances have come out. JP Morgan and Bank of America generally look good, don't they? Seem to be above expectations.
Yes. Generally, that's true. Especially the transaction revenues were strong on the investment banking side.
On the other hand, funding costs and also loan requests. Are there some complicated signals there?
Absolutely. I mean, even JP Morgan says that high interest rates are somewhat challenging for deposits and money is moving to other places. That's why they are actually expecting a rate cut.
I understand.
There seems to be demand in medium-sized companies, but a general slowdown is also the dominant expectation in the sector. Wells Fargo seems to be a bit behind in this race.
Well, the airlines, I think they've done well. United or something?
Oh yes, the airlines surprised a bit. I mean, companies like United especially focused on the premium segment and managed costs well, so they performed quite well. They even seem to be speaking as if they have no concerns about a recession or anything.
Interesting. If we move on to technology, there was ASML. I think concerns about China are ongoing there.
Yes, there isn't much change on that side, but TCMC, the Taiwanese giant, has taken the lead with its plan to switch to 2-nanometer chips. This is, of course, an important development for semiconductors.
Energy efficiency, performance improvement, etc.
Exactly, but on the other hand, when the Taiwan dollar appreciates, margins are somewhat suppressed. That's also a detail.
Netflix, though, the ad-supported model seems to work, but I think it compresses quite a bit on YouTube.
Yes, Netflix is growing, but competition is also intensifying, of course. I also noticed that they are experimenting with artificial intelligence in content production. It seems like the industry is heading in that direction.
What about the macro side? CPI and PPI data have arrived. How did the markets react?
So, the core CPI came in better than expected, but as soon as we look at the details of the data, discussions about the inflationary effects of President Trump's possible tariffs started immediately.
Yes.
PPI was a bit calmer. We can say it slightly eased the market. S&P 500 and Nasdaq are near their peaks, but there's not a very relaxed atmosphere.
Is there anxiety or what?
A little. Especially on the American bond side, long-term interest rates are rising. It's not just in the US, but in Germany and Japan as well. This could also put pressure on stocks. So it's no longer like before. There are questions like, is the low interest rate period over now that the central bank equals?
It seems that the President Trump factor comes to the forefront at this point. Tariffs, then the rumors about dismissing the Fed chairman.
Exactly. So, 100% threat of a second tariff on Russia, the expectation that the general tariff rate could exceed 25%, all of these mean inflation for the market.
Just the mention of firing Powell was enough to shake up the market already.
Yes, it caused a brief panic. The issue of the Fed's independence will be discussed a lot in the upcoming period. The dollar index is also trying to hold around the high 98 to low 98 level in this environment.
Let's say commodities. What's going on with gold? At one point, the target was flying around $4,000.
The long-term outlook remains positive, but gold has yet to break through the $3,165 resistance. It is currently moving sideways for now.
Why then? Haven't geopolitical risks, money supply and such still been priced in?
It's not exactly that. I mean, there is potential, but the expected movement hasn't come yet. Silver looks a bit better than gold. just to let you know.
Were there any purchase recommendations?
Yes, there is for silver, but in the short term, if there is a rally in the dollar, precious metals might be somewhat suppressed. Still, overall, dips in gold are seen as buying opportunities.
Cryptocurrencies. That place is always lively anyway. This week, there was the Genius Law. President Trump signed it. What exactly is this?
Yes, it's called Genius Act. Actually, there are quite a few companies that have launched stablecoins, dollar-pegged coins. The law encourages them to use the dollars they collect to buy US Treasury bonds.
I understand. So it's like creating resources for the Treasury.
Exactly. The Treasury theoretically borrows at a lower cost. This situation can also exert downward pressure on interest rates. I mean, it's a smart approach to support the Treasury without frightening the market too much.
So how does this affect Bitcoin and Ethereum? Should we wait for the altcoin rally now?
Currently, global liquidity remains supportive. There seems to be potential for cryptocurrencies until mid-September. Very ambitious targets are being discussed for Bitcoin, such as $142,000, for Ethereum $4,000, but both are in the overbought zone in the short term. So, there is a high likelihood of a correction. Caution is needed. Perhaps a phased buying approach could be considered.
What about altcoins?
I think it's a bit early for the altcoin rally. Bitcoin dominance is still high. Also, there is an overbought condition, so the market might need to stabilize first. Ripple is already uncertain. Coins like Solana and AVAX have potential, but they will probably be affected by a general pullback.
We have arrived at the Turkish markets, BIST 100, and of course the central bank's interest rate decision. What do you think?
There is talk of a 19,000 potential for BIST 100, but the general consensus is that the rises might present some selling opportunities. There is a major concern about a big downturn in the market. Like, could an unexpected bad news come?
I understand. What do you think the interest rate decision will be? Is the meeting on July 24th like a cut or a discount?
The discount expectation is very high, yes. It's almost considered certain. But how many basis points? That's a bit uncertain. 250? 350? It depends on the market situation, but 350 basis points seems a bit more likely.
But on the other hand, there is inflationary pressure. Inflation expectations are still high among households. How confident is TCMB to make a significant discount? What will happen to the dollar TL, Turkish bonds?
Here's the hardest part. As you said, the household inflation expectation is still above the deposit interest rate. What does this do? It keeps the demand for foreign currency alive. Foreign currency deposit accounts have reached nearly $190 billion.
Very high.
Yes. I mean, in this environment, TCMB's job is really difficult. They might have a very limited space for discounts. Maybe they'll take a more symbolic step. I don't know.
Developments in Syria are also being monitored, of course.
Absolutely. There is a significant risk factor on that side. CDS premiums will also reflect all these uncertainties in the coming days.
Yes. It was indeed a quite busy week, and these were the highlights from our perspective. In the US, the earnings are good, but macro risks exist. An interesting law was passed regarding cryptocurrencies. A rate decision is expected in Turkey.
Exactly. That's it in a nutshell.
So, in your opinion, as a final thought, what does the fact that bond yields are moving independently of central banks, despite this global liquidity increase, tell us about future monetary policies? In other words, will central banks perhaps take different approaches than we know in fighting inflation? What do you think? It seems like a topic worth pondering.
Definitely worth thinking about. Maybe old habits are really breaking down.
See you next weekend. I wish you a week full of success.
See you soon. Have a good week.